What do you believe about podcasting, and what do you believe about which genres are the best fit for your brand? Are there genres that you stay away from or overlook because it's not the usual suspects like Joe Rogan or Call Her Daddy or comedy? One of the things that we figured out when we released Orbit a few weeks ago, and just as a friendly reminder, Orbit is the Oxford Road benchmark intelligence tool. What we did was we looked at $1.6 billion of advertiser data to see what shows performed on aggregate in what ways. And then we had our data analysts go through all the numbers and try to figure out what are the patterns that we're seeing from this? What can we learn? One of the things that we discovered was that faith-based podcasts are often undervalued because our belief is that there's a very close relationship and high trust that audiences have with faith-based programs, but advertisers a lot of times skip it. Why do they do that? We can speculate, but there may be an opportunity here that you haven't considered. What we're doing today on the Media Roundtable is we're meeting with one of the top, most successful shows, two hosts that started a show a couple years ago that is faith-based and has really taken the world by storm. And we're going to talk a little bit about their show, and I hope that it's a good use case for all of the people in the industry about a genre that may be overlooked and maybe a show that can be overlooked sometimes because of the potential that it has for brands. Welcome to the Media Roundtable. I'm Dan Granger, and today I am joined by two new friends, Angela Halili and Ariel Reitzma, who are the co-hosts of the hit show Girls Gone Bible. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for making time today.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you for having us, Dan.
So you've only had this show about 2 years, as I understand it, and you're already creeping up on, you're going to be at 1 million YouTube followers, as I understand it, pretty soon. It sounds like you just completed a 50-city tour and have a best-selling devotional book called Out of the Wilderness. Sounds like you've really had a meteoric rise in a short space of time. If you don't mind, I just want to get started by understanding a little bit about both of your backgrounds and how the show came to be.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for saying that. I'm Angela, and I am from the East Coast, and then I moved to LA when I was 18 years old. I was pursuing acting. Never in a million years did I think I would do podcasting. I certainly never thought that I'd have a Bible podcast. So I started following Jesus when I was about 23, and I went on a really long journey of healing, mental health. I got sober, and I just had an experience with God that just absolutely changed and transformed my life. And I won't tell Ari's side, but basically I then meet Ari, and Ari is in, actually, Ari, go ahead. You continue your part, and then we'll tell the rest.
Okay. About how we met? Well, hi, I'm Ari. I have a similar story. I'm from Massachusetts, and I moved to LA when I was 18, had big dreams, went through a lot of struggle growing up, a lot of anxiety, depression, just really living of the world. I met Jesus 2.5 years ago. He completely saved my life. He got me out of the darkness into the light, transformed my life. I then met my best friend, Angela, when I had first got saved, and we just went on this journey together. She discipled me. She spoon-fed me the Bible. We went on this journey of just following Jesus, helping girls around us in LA, and then we both kind of came together and said, we need to help the world. We need to tell people what Jesus has done for us. And so, but we didn't really know what we were doing. We went into a podcast studio one day and just kind of got really vulnerable and told our stories. And take it away, Ange.
Yeah, Dan, we were so unaware of podcasts that we thought we were going to film a YouTube video. And so we go into this podcast studio, and the producer is like, we finish talking. We finished the episode, and I'm like, yeah, we're going to start a YouTube channel. And the producer looks at us and goes, I don't think you understand what you have here. This is going to be insane. I'm going to help you get on all the audio platforms. I'm going to help you get a thumbnail. He like literally walked us step by step on how to like actually create a podcast. And when we went into the studio, we were going to call it Girls Gone God. So still kind of a play on Girls Gone Wild, but Girls Gone God. And he goes, hello, Girls Gone Bible, it rhymes. And I was like, you're a genius. And so our producer that day in the room didn't even know us and like literally saw the vision of what GGB would become. And he like walked us through everything, and it was amazing.
So you went in just thinking you were doing like a bit of a pilot, and you thought it was only going to be on YouTube. And what's kind of, I know we're jumping back and forth between some pretty serious in intimate parts of your life, and then we're also talking about the business, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that's happened in the industry in the time that you've been doing it is, there's this huge shift with podcasts starting to migrate over from being audio driven to video driven. So you're saying that when you started it, it was really made to be a video driven product, but then you ended up launching it really with a focus on the audio piece. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. We had no idea that it would be like an audio platform project that we were doing.
And do you follow the numbers close enough to know how much of your audience is actually coming through YouTube versus all of the podcast feeds?
No.
Hard to
I
say.
imagine
Well, it's a moving target, and honestly, the truth is nobody knows, but we have some guesses,
I
right?
think it's YouTube. Yeah, I
Yeah.
imagine. I mean, our numbers are definitely higher on YouTube.
Yeah. Well, one of the big things that I think has made YouTube a really important force is that it's so much easier to share information on YouTube. It's so much easier to share content. You can clip it, you can push it out and distribute it and find people in ways that are a lot harder with the audio feeds never really figured it out. So in a way, what we started with podcasts that were really about conversation or, theater of the mind, the video component has started to take over as a really significant driver. And it sounds like the timing worked out in such a way that right as you were starting to launch this thing, podcasting was coming into its own. And it sounds like that was maybe part of what was able to help this thing take off. So how did you get the word out about it? How did you promote it?
So basically, this is what happened. So we went into the studio before we before we filmed the episode that would be our first episode of GGB Ever Out There. We actually went in a first time to a studio, filmed an episode that we were like, that was a mess. We don't know what we're doing. But I took some clips out of that episode, cut them up myself, literally on CapCut, posted them to TikTok, and they started blowing up, going viral, and everyone was asking, where is this podcast from? Like, what is this podcast? So Arya and I were like, okay, we have to actually film this thing and put it out. So we had a little bit of traction already before ever releasing an episode where people kind of maybe knew our faces and knew who we were, these two girls talking about Jesus. And then we created the Instagram, released an episode, and then we started posting clips. So clips were everything. We posted maybe like the fourth clip that we posted just hit like a really good part of the internet and just got like 20 million views. And from that one clip that kind of went viral, the rest of, the numbers, we just didn't even know what was happening. All of a sudden, it was just like thousands upon thousands. And we were like, this is absolutely
It was
wild.
like minutes. I remember so vividly looking at our Instagram when we first started it and seeing the numbers like skyrocket to thousands in minutes. Because I had been in social media before and I was like, what is happening? So we just looked at each other and we're like, well, here we go. Buckle up.
Well, do you feel like it was something specific? Was it a topic that you were on, or was it just the show itself? And were people just really fascinated to see the concept?
Yeah, truthfully, the crux and the core of GGB is, first of all, Jesus. Second of all, like deep vulnerability. And so the clip that went viral was me talking about God pulling me out of the trenches, and that my life has not been perfect, but I love God because he got me out of, like, really difficult situations. So the clip in and of itself was incredibly raw and vulnerable, and I think since then, 2.5 years ago, there's been an a major increase of vulnerable content, but I think back then, especially in the Christian space, maybe there wasn't as much vulnerability, so I just think that anytime you're talking about despair and suffering and, like, genuine emotion and things that you're going through, it resonates with people so much. So I think back then it was probably, interesting for people to hear a girl talk about being in the trenches and God pulling her out of it.
And from what I've been able to see, most of it is just very conversational and format wise, it seems like it's really the two of you talking, right? How much like describe what the show is for people that haven't had a chance to watch or to listen. How much of it is interviews, and how do you think about like the programming?
Yeah. We have maybe one interview a month, sometimes more, sometimes less. We try to have less interviews because we love personally having guests on, and our audience does too, but they love the conversations between Ari and I. So basically, what the show looks like is for the first maybe 15 minutes, Ari and I are absolute fools. Like, we talk about our week, we tell stories, we laugh, we act crazy. Like, we're just very much like, we're just insane. We're ourselves, like who we are every day. And then we kind of get into the crux of the episode, and it's usually topical, or we pick one Bible story or like passage of scripture that we read, and then we just talk about what we've read. We teach on the Bible, we preach from our hearts, and yeah, and then we basically tell stories and just walk people through the lessons um around the scripture that we've read that day, and preach spiritually to them and kind of guide people through where we are in our lives, the things that we've learned, and show them how to practically apply the things that we're teaching.
And then I imagine there was a point in time at which you said, "Hey, this can be a full-time job," right? When did you hit the point that you knew that this was going to be something you could focus on completely?
I think we were like maybe 6 months into the podcast where somebody approached us. I mean, we never even thought truly that this is something that you monetize or that you call a job. Like, we genuinely were so on mission to tell people about Jesus. We couldn't have even like computed in our brains that we could like live, doing this. And probably 6 months in, somebody approached us at UTA actually, and they just yeah, we had a meeting with them, and they told us how we could, just build a ministry and yeah, make this. And there was also so much demand so quickly with the podcast where we started doing 2 episodes a month, and then we had to do 4 because people wanted it, and then we started doing live events and things in person, and so very quickly it became something where, oh, this is becoming our everything, there is no room for anything else.
So when did you guys sign with UTA?
We signed with UTA about a year ago. We started off with Buckwald,
Okay.
and then we were with Buckwald, and shortly after, we got approached with going on tour, and so because UTA had the tour department and they were just we decided to go to venture off with them, and it was the greatest decision that we could have made.
Do you work with Oren a little bit?
No, we don't work with Oren, we work with Ben and Rebecca,
Okay.
but Oren's awesome. We love Oren.
Oren is wonderful. They got a good thing going over there. I'm glad to hear that you guys are with them. So, okay, we're on the kind of the when did this thing become your full-time gig? And I know it's a ministry, but is the business, if we can just talk about the company a little bit, are you a not-for-profit? Is it a business? How do you think about expanding it? And what are maybe the differences between how you think about it as a ministry and also as like everybody else in this world, a business that's trying to grow?
Totally.
The great thing about us and working with ads on our podcast is we work with brands that we genuinely believe in. And so we work with brands like BetterHelp that we've been with from the beginning, and we've been partnering with them for about 2 years. So it doesn't even feel like a business. It's like we're actually promoting brands that we love and believe in that actually help our listeners. So it's worked out so great.
And to go off of what Ari's saying as well. So the way that we look at, because truthfully, it is a ministry for us first and foremost. And then we also get amazing opportunities through the podcast. Like there's so many ways in which it's branched off. I think our mission and the way we go about growing a business is that everything is mission focused. And so for us, there's no dollar amount that's worth doing anything that goes against our core mission, which is proclaiming the gospel and bringing people to Jesus. And I just think, not to over spiritualize this, but God has opened so many incredible doors that are so fruitful for us and has brought so much beautiful prosperity to our lives that also, first and foremost, is with the mission that we're on. So when we make business decisions, it's always with the focus of what actually advances the kingdom of God and what aligns with us. And everything is about making a difference and helping people. And it's just the world that we live in where business is brought into everything. So to not let things get a little convoluted for us, we just focus on what actually matters, what helps people, and what do we feel God is calling us to.
And is it? I assume it's not a not for profit. It's structured as a business, but it is a like the purpose of the business is the ministry,
Yeah.
correct? Or am I getting
Yes.
that wrong? Okay, got it. And the different pieces of it. It sounds like a lot of what, like the home base, and I think this is true for all. I think creators, whether or not they know it, is the podcast is kind of the mothership. That is the home base where your audience can really come and engage with you in the deepest way, right?
Yeah.
And then it sounds like there's a lot of reach on social media that you're able to do through taking segments of that and clips and distributing that out.
Yeah.
And then it sounds like there's also a book piece and a tour piece, which is interesting because, I mean, ministry or not, that is, I think, what has proven to be the more successful model in this space. Is there anything else that you've done to reach people on a consistent basis, or are those kind of the core pillars of it as it stands today?
Those are the core pillars, yeah. And speaking engagements and events, but you're absolutely right. It's like Girls Gone Bible, the podcast is truly the mothership, like you said. And it's so special, all that's come from just the podcast.
Well, and so let's talk about how you were saying earlier that you want to make sure you only promote brands that you believe in, that you feel a connection to. What does that process look like for you when you're engaging with a brand?
Yeah, typically they'll send us something before we even promote it. We try it, we see if we like it. If we like it, we promote it. And so that's how it typically works with brands.
Yeah, and we're really we are obsessed with really loving the things that we promote because our audience trusts us so much, and we've been floored with how engaged our audience actually is with the brands and the products we promote. And so I think that creates an even more sense of urgency for us to be like, okay, we've got to love this because they're purchasing, they're buying, they're using the codes. It's like amazing.
And it's so cool because we have it's like we're a family and we have so many women that follow us. So we love fashion and beauty. And so it's been so cool to be able to collab with all these brands and share it with our people, you know?
Absolutely. Well, and I think that any brand that engages in this space, what you're really looking for are hosts or creators that are going to be authentic
Mhm.
and that are going to, like, we have people that listen to every air check and grade every air check. And a big piece of what you're looking for and what we try to set up at the beginning of a relationship is, will the host actually go on record and say, I use this and you should too? Or, you can't always use the products that you're selling, but you might still believe in it and think that it's a good business. But is there a link there between what you believe to be true and how that works through your values to promote the thing? And oftentimes, sadly, what you'll find is there's a lot of people that will take on an advertising client, and they'll phone it in. They'll read the script. It's a chore. Everybody knows it's a chore, but at least they checked the box and ran the copy, right? It sounds like you've got a bit of a different process when you're doing it.
Yeah, it matters to us so much, to love the product and to know what we're promoting, and honestly, even for the brand, we also want them to be happy with the performance. So if we really feel like something will not resonate with our audience at all, we'll be honest with the brand about that. I think what's been interesting as well, I think when we first started 2.5 years ago, there definitely weren't as many Christian podcasts, faith based podcasts. And I think brands back in the day were a little bit more nervous to partner with faith podcasts because they thought it kind of like put you in a box. It was a little taboo. They were just different about faith. And it's just so funny to me now, like that there's just so much Christian content and so many Christian platforms. And we have like the most faithful audiences. We have the most loyal audiences. So now I think brands are like, oh no. And these people will really engage. And also, when we first started, I remember kind of different audio platforms like sales networks would think, oh, maybe these faith-based podcasts won't accept as many brands and won't accept as many products. But the truth is, like, there are definitely a lot of non-negotiables. We certainly won't promote this or that, but there's so much we can do. I mean, there's so many brands that we work with that I think, yeah, it's just changed the game in the last couple of years where brands realize, no, the faith-based platforms, people are engaged.
Have you actually seen that change? Like, so what was it? If we're in 25, so was it 23 when you launched?
23. Yeah.
Yeah. So have you seen a specific change in the market of how brands are willing to engage with you? And is that connected to the audience, or you really believe that's a cultural shift, or is it just a business mindset?
I think it's all of them. I think it's
Yeah.
all of it. And I think, of course, if the show's doing well, people wanna, partner. But I do think that there's something to just the culture right now where, yeah, faith was a little bit more taboo back in the day. People weren't as open and bold about their faith, and it's just so different now. And I think where brands used to have to be fearful and careful, they're a lot less, what's the word I'm looking for? They're just a lot less
The-
afraid to engage.
yeah, well, and I think we've seen that. I've worked with personality endorsements for 20 years now. I'm getting old, and there's always been there's always been concerns. And like, I worked in radio and terrestrial radio, right? And basically everything was permissible because you had the FCC, and you had certain rules and standards. But then when it came to like AM radio, there would be do not buy lists, and it would basically be the conservative national hosts, and then it'd be like, and Howard Stern, and don't buy those. And they
Mhm.
had really, a lot of times there were simple and arbitrary rules sometimes. But then what we noticed with the agency was when COVID hit, the world just imploded, and things got very confusing for people, and brands started feeling a lot of pressure to pick
Totally.
sides, right? And that's when
Yes.
so much of the polarization happened. And one of the things we got deeply involved with was trying to help advertisers have really a grid or a filter to think about what are their own values, and do they really want to make decisions based on things like political preference. And what we found was the most important thing for most brands is actually personal attack. because when an advertiser gets stuck in the culture wars, we don't have to go too deep into this, but a brand that is sponsoring a show, if the host of that show is attacking other people in their show, guess what? There's going to be a counterattack, and the brand's going to get hit in the crossfire. And that happens on the right. It happens on the left. A lot of times, there's kind of a outrage industrial complex where you have a lot of people in political content, and a lot of times that gets affiliated with Christianity, right? The Christian right has been, I think those ideas have been forced together because there are so many people that are claiming that, but then they're going and throwing rocks at their enemies. And in the meantime, it becomes brand unsafe. And so what a lot of brands do, first of all, most advertisers, most of the decision makers I have known are not people of faith. So they're not necessarily looking at it like, oh, I want to move toward that because I have a preference.
Right.
And then when they look at their business, they go, do I want to take on that risk? Because to a lot of them, if you're affiliated with something that is faith-based, that means you're also by default, you're affiliating with a political party as well, or something that is controversial. But I have also seen, I think part of it is the election. I think that, a lot of the sensitivities went away after Trump won. I think that was a huge piece of it. The other piece is, I think you were touching on this earlier. I think the fragmentation of media and the proliferation of Christian content has actually started reaching a lot of audiences. So it's not like you might not like this type of Christian content, but there's a lot more to choose from now. And I think that's probably bringing in audiences that weren't there before. That's my read on the situation, but I'm interested in your reactions or, anything to add to that.
I think you said it perfectly. I think you absolutely said it perfectly. Yeah, after COVID, we went through a really difficult time in every industry, everywhere. And I think it made a lot of people just timid and afraid for so many different reasons on all sides. And I think when we started the podcast, yeah, we definitely had a couple of moments or brands or partnerships that people are like, oh, we don't know because it's faith. And we just don't see that at all anymore. People are a lot more comfortable and, yeah, they also just know, like, the Christian space, the faith-based space it's massive. Like, it's massive. The amount of Christian content, I don't know if I can say this. I know, an agency, uh, and they're developing a Christian department for Christian content, which is, like, one of the most wild things it's crazy, and so we have so many peers, and everyone has a Christian podcast, which is amazing, and, yeah, there's just and then these not secular, but I guess mainstream agencies are picking up all these, Christian platforms and podcasts and artists and all these people because they're like, the Christians watch. They care about this content. And yeah, I think there's definitely revival happening all over the country and all over the world. And we're seeing that in entertainment and Christian media.
Tell me if you've ever heard of any of these companies: Shopify, DraftKings, Oracle, Warby Parker, Mint Mobile, Quince. I am proud to say that half of the top 10 advertisers in podcasting choose to work with Oxford Road. We are now the world's largest podcast advertising agency, and we do so much more than that. YouTube, radio, streaming. We are on 6 continents working internationally. Reach out to us. We'll tell you about Woven, which is probably the world's largest database of show information that's relevant for brands. Orbit, which is $1.6 billion of aggregated performance data used to de-risk every single campaign. Audiolytics, where we can actually measure ad copy and optimize it to maximize performance. We got a lot going on over here. That's why you can read about us in the Wall Street Journal or the Hollywood Reporter or USA Today or Business Insider. But whatever you need, we try to bring thought leadership that matters to you. Sign up for our newsletter that is called The Influencer. When you go to oxfordroad.com, you can always learn more at the Media Roundtable podcast. We got a lot of interesting content. If you just want to learn about this business, and if you don't care, but you just need somebody to make sure that you're getting outcomes that only we can deliver, go to oxfordroad.com and learn more. And make sure you mention the Media Roundtable, because attribution. That's oxfordroad.com. Yeah, it's interesting that, I think, I grew up in a world where there were only so many TV stations and only so many radio stations, and
Right.
everything had to go through a very narrow gate to actually get distribution, right? And now it's much more, most of it's a meritocracy, even though the algorithms do have a say in this, and
Right.
those can be manipulated. But it's interesting. I think there's a lot more people that are able to create a lot more diversity of content and better content, whether that's faith-based content or, even if it's another niche. People are able to create good work in ways that they don't have to go through many gatekeepers, and they're able to reach more people that they previously didn't have access to. So it's really interesting to see the way that the world is moving, and especially, in circles of faith as well. So when you think about brands that would be a good fit for your program, tell me about your audience. Who's actually most likely to listen or to watch?
Yeah. We have I think our demographic is mostly women, in their 20s and 30s, and although we have lots of men that watch across the board, children, girls, moms with their kids. So we have we have 60, 70, 80-year-old women who we meet in public, and they're like, "Your show isn't just for young girls. I learn about Jesus too." And so, it's all ages, but majority women, 20s to 30s. We've been so blessed to work with multiple partners that we are obsessed with. Like Ari said, BetterHelp. There's this platform called No CD. It's basically like a therapy platform where people can get help if they have religious OCD. So that's another partnership that we're obsessed with. And then
What's religious OCD?
religious OCD, it's called scrupulosity. It's basically OCD, but around religion and your relationship with
So
God.
not like PTSD from religion,
No.
you're literally, because I think they need one of those too.
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
But I didn't imagine there. Yeah, sorry, keep going. I don't.
That's okay.
I wanna
Religious OCD. It's a really real thing. And Ari and I have both struggled with OCD, so it just means so much for us to work with them. Yeah, religious OCD is a real thing. It's gnarly. I can explain it to you if you want.
Yeah, no, I'm genuinely curious because I'd never heard of this.
So basically, OCD, where you have obsessive compulsive thoughts and actions, some people have that with their faith. So they could pray and then get super anxious that they didn't pray right and that they're going to go to hell because they didn't pray right. So it's just these really oppressive, dark thoughts that come up, and then they can lead to compulsions, like doing the same prayer multiple times because you feel like you didn't get it right. That's one example. It's very real.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
So that's an example. So that's one's
an example.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you work with, so I understand that the brands you work with have to align with your values. But if you would use the product, you don't really want to know what the person who made your breakfast at the restaurant, believes. We don't really want to go all the way through the supply chain and make sure that our values align with everything we consume, right? Or we probably wouldn't leave the house much. Will you work with companies that have very different sets of beliefs as long as you feel free to use their product?
We have a team that goes through and manages who we partner with. And of course, we look at if there's any over controversy or something wrong with the brand that is very much not in alignment with us. But that doesn't happen often. Brands are usually brands aren't usually getting into trouble and doing controversial things. Now, if someone is outright, if we're completely out of alignment, then absolutely.
Well,
Or do you mean
let's say,
non-Christian?
yeah, I'll give you a theoretical. I'm not going to call any brands out, but let's say that the CEO of a company is overtly atheist, and they like to talk about that on social media, but they make a good product and you use the product. Does that matter? Do you have to have common values with the brand itself, or are you content to say, "Hey, look, we think it's a great shampoo anyway, and we're fine with that as long as we believe in the product that we're promoting"?
Yeah, we're completely okay to freedom of practicing whatever religion you want, and if that's atheism, that's great. If somebody is outwardly blaspheming Jesus and it's like a thing on social media, that's a different story. But
That
no,
would be
people
a
are
different situation. Well, and
yeah,
that's
but
gonna
Yeah.
be that's not gonna happen a lot.
yeah, so
Yeah,
people
yeah,
Yeah.
are allowed to have their own beliefs
yeah.
and yeah, everybody is completely allowed to have their own beliefs.
Yeah.
And so, and do you feel like brands are getting, I think, less fearful about moving into faith-based content? Do you feel like that's true for really large companies? Like, are you seeing a lot of like household name brands, or is it, so much of this industry that we've been involved with forever has been really a lot of new businesses, startups, consumer brands that are, digitally focused? Or are you actually starting to see some of the like, Fortune 500 type of stuff come through?
Can you give me a couple examples on what those brands would be?
Sure. Like we're starting to see, if you look at the top advertisers in podcasting, like when we started this business, we worked with Dollar Shave Club and ZipRecruiter and LegalZoom, and it was like they were new businesses bringing something to market, and I think that's always been the backbone of really probably the creator economy with respect to advertising and
Right.
podcasting specifically. But now we see, Miller Coors comes in, or we see oh gosh, who's Toyota's buying a lot of ads now, like traditional, you know uh large global businesses. Are you seeing those move into faith-based content as well?
I we work with a pretty big mattress brand. What is that mattress brand that we work with that I love and I can't think of right now? They're pretty big.
I don't know them. I don't.
Okay, okay.
There was
Um,
yeah, there have been a lot of them, but yeah, that's probably a tell. I think the ones that are still going today are pretty big. But I think the fact that, what you're alluding to on, an agency starting to open up a division, I think it is becoming a lot more mainstream. I think you've got a lot of, when American Idol has a gospel night, and the commercial success of things like The Chosen, like when you start to see that stuff coming into culture, I think the money is actually going to follow that. So if it's not here yet for this genre, and I don't know that it is, but I have a feeling it's moving in that direction, and I think that's a good thing. As brands are trying to open their eyes to not just going to the usual suspects of shows, but really trying to reach audiences, whether or not that would normally be their first thought in media buying.
Yeah. Yeah, we're in revival right now, and even in Hollywood, like you see in Hollywood, it's all like you said, like The Chosen, it's all Christian content coming in even in Hollywood. So the game's just changing, so I think people now, bigger brands are just trusting Christian podcasts more.
And when you think about the audience responses, like do you get feedback? One of the things I know is hard because we're an intermediary, right? We sit in between the advertisers and the creators and their publishers. But a lot of times there's a communication gap where you work really hard to get behind something and then you don't actually know what the audience is doing after the ad. Do you get any visibility into the response that it creates?
yeah, I think that's really important too. We love seeing who is engaging with what product and what brand. That's really important to us because, yeah, we just want to know if our audience is enjoying, if they're engaging. And so that's really important to us.
And have you taken on any brand partnerships that go beyond the live reads or the integrations into the show? Are you doing any 360 campaigns or things like that?
We've done a little bit of ad placement to social media, but I don't think we've ever done a 360.
Well, the social media part's helpful, and I know our clients appreciate it. If you're doing those for our brands, that's a good thing. Okay, well, look, I think this is a really helpful start to the conversation. Tell me about the future a little bit. What do you see as the GGB universe as you look out, years into the future? What 3 to 5 years out, do you plan it? Do you just go, we're just going to go one step at a time here, or do you have a vision for what you think it can become?
I think we go one step at a time, but we love to dream for sure. I think when it comes to the podcast, we just built out our own studio after 2.5 years. It's so cute.
Congratulations.
Dan, you're going to die when you see it. So we have our studio, and we're looking to add a second episode eventually in the future, which we're really excited about. We want
You
to
mean
do,
2 a week?
yeah, to do two a week.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're really excited about that, and we just want to just keep growing, keep bringing people to Jesus. And obviously there's so much more than the podcast, like the books and the live events and the tour, which I think is so fun. But what else, what do you think?
Yeah, even with tour, we want to keep continuing the tour. I think we've been at the top in Australia since the beginning, so we really want to go overseas and do some tours in Australia.
And I'm sorry I don't know this already, but when you go on tour, what is the content? Do you do the show live, or is there a different type of content that you'll do in front of a live audience? How does that
Yeah,
work?
it's basically a live podcast tour. So we have a worship leader that travels with us, and we do about 20 minutes of worship, and then Angela and I will each go into our testimonies, and we'll just have depending upon which city, we'll have different subjects that we talk on, and then we minister to the people at the end and pray for people, and it's so beautiful. It's so different in every city, but it's basically just like a live podcast tour where we connect with everyone.
Yeah, and
I would call it a revival night.
yeah, it's not so much it's not very podcasty. It's very much like Ari and I craft a message together and then release it to the room. It's similar to a church service kind of, but also different than anything you've probably ever seen.
How big a room typically? Do you try to keep it like small where you can talk to everybody after, or is it a pretty big event?
Yeah, I mean, we've had nights where it's 2,500 people in the room. Typically it's between 8 and 1,200.
Wow.
We've had shows as small as 4 or 500 in really small cities. But it's like, Dan, it's truly one of the craziest things I think Ari and I have experienced in all of this is how like the theaters fill up and sell out everywhere we go. We've done
Wow.
38 so far, and it's just wild that people wanna show up. They wanna get in the room. They wanna be with Jesus, you know?
Well, and so when so you have the tour, you have the show, you have your social. Do you have like a newsletter that you do? Like, do you have a subscriber list, or is there a way that you can directly get in touch with your audience anytime you want?
We do another platform, called GGB Plus, where we do kind of like behind the scenes and exclusive episodes. We have that, but no newsletter or anything like that.
And are you thinking at some point you want to do a network on this? Like, do you think about rolling up other talent?
We've thought about it.
We've
Yeah.
thought about Boys Gone Bible.
Ah,
Yeah,
it could
yep,
happen.
yeah,
It
I
could
think in the
happen.
future.
Okay. All right. Well, you guys are doing some powerful stuff, and I wish you continued success. I think this is a great example of whatever you believe, that there's an opportunity to partner with people who have a real authentic relationship with their audience, and that's something that can be beneficial for the brand, but also maybe less threatening than a lot of people might appreciate. And it seems like you guys have really created an opportunity for brands to experience that in a way that maybe they haven't seen before. So congratulations on all your success. And I hope we can continue the conversation.
Wow,
Wow.
thank you, Dan. You're so kind. It was so nice to talk with you today.
Well, thank you, Angela and Ariel, for joining the Media Roundtable. This podcast is brought to you by Oxford Road, where we want you to exceed in this medium, whether that is traditional podcasting or audio or creator media, and to use your influence for good. As members of the marketing community, we have the power to advance voices that don't just entertain, but edify, and to build bridges across differences and preserve fair-minded discussion around the most important topics of our age. If you're a marketer looking to align your brand values with extraordinary business outcomes, reach out to our agency. It's called Oxford Road. Go to oxfordroad.com, subscribe to our free weekly newsletter. It's called The Influencer, and it will influence you to build your business. And we like feedback also. Give us all your thoughts at info@mediaroundtable.com. Check out our creative focused podcast if you want to learn about how to achieve performance in creative. It's called Ad Infinitum, hosted by Stu Redwine. And special thanks to not only our guests, but also Haley, Bianca, Rocio, Kyle, Ezra, Everett, Neil, and the team at Podcast One. As always, influence responsibly.